Welcome back, everyone, to our podcast where Jessica and I explore spiritual context within our everyday worldly chaos. And in today's interview, we are talking to Megan Leatherman about, well, we talked about tarot within the last interview from 2023, but also about how she discovers purpose and her entire journey with that idea. And how did you take that interview, Jessica? What did you think about it?
So my takeaway from the interview was a little overwhelmed, actually. I, too, am trying to find my own purpose. And there is a lot of overwhelm in the journey, especially where I'm at.
Yeah.
Listening to it was super inspiring. However, I'm looking for a little more insight as to sort of how to part the curtains, how to sort of look out the window and kind of get your feet on the ground while exploring this. Like if there's any tools that Megan might have to point someone towards to finding authenticity.
Heck yeah.
Individualism or like expression or that's kind of because it all made a lot of sense, but I feel like there's sort of a beginning point.
Yeah.
For the individual that might be helpful to kind of unearth.
No, I love that. I can't wait to hear your questions because I think that I have looked at this a lot trying to move towards spirituality because it feels a little more on the nose, purpose, applying it to spirituality. Like, oh, my purpose is spirituality, But that's also had its ups and downs because why does my purpose have to be spirituality in general? Why can't my purpose just be enjoying life? What is purpose in general? And is it more of like this? How do we get it outside this capitalistic kind of chokehold?
Like how do you get out from under burnout or just the dizzying daily grind?
Yeah. And how do you have your purpose and a dizzying daily grind? Because a lot of people, their daily grind is not their purpose. So you're having to double up on what you're offering the world. And that's a lot of energy to expend outward, when a lot of our lives, once we want to feel private, we want to feel like ourselves and maybe a bit separate, or at least like with our family and friends and stuff like that. So what part of this is the purpose? Is the purpose always something greater, always something like more out, or is there a purpose that's in? That's more, like some people say that becoming a mother is their purpose, or, being this person's friend is their purpose.
Right. Yeah. Another avenue I want to explore is the delineation between, like, sometimes I find I'm self-obsessed or like I'm so fixated on uncovering this purpose for myself that I think the only remedy to that overwhelm is to focus on others, just to be of service and pull my head out of my self. And so I wonder, where's that delineation between like being of service and thinking of others and then uncovering your true self and thinking about yourself and your path and what fulfillment looks like if it's not in the service of others.
Ooh, yeah. If it's not in the service of others. Yeah. And wouldn't that be like looking at it selfishly? If it's, how is it just going to serve me? How's my purpose just going to serve me? These are all really good perspectives of it. Yeah. I've been having a hard time with my purpose recently of what I just said, of like, what do I really want to feel while I'm here? I think that's a big part of purpose. You're bringing up that it's like kind of a charity thing or something where you're giving back, you're, putting back into the earth. And I definitely see that as a massive purpose that should be cultivated by a lot of people because that's how we have, big change happen. But it is like, what's your own individual sense of purpose where every day it's maybe not as this massive, like larger political movement or larger social movement or whatever. Like, what's your purpose like on your day-to-day life where you're just being a human?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Megan is here.
Woo.
Hi.
Hi, Megan.
Hey, how are you?
Good. What have you been up to since we spoke in 2023? Has any like major changes happened or any revelations or any bigger life, events? Anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone probably says a lot has changed. I mean, 3 years is a long time, but yeah, I do feel like there's been this pretty big shift in terms of spiritual understanding or understanding my place in the world or what I'm meant to bring forward. Think back to 2023. That was the year that I did something called a wilderness vigil, which is a 4-day fast in the woods, alone, no tent, just water, no fire. And it was a very important, pivotal thing to do in my life and really a gateway into just a deeper understanding of my connection to the land and what it means to be in intimate relationship with the land and place and sort of, yeah, all of the gifts of that and what that means to bring forward through the work that I do now. So that feels like the sort of seed or initiating moment that year that is still feeding me in really big ways today.
Wow. What happens when you are without food and shelter in the wilderness for 4 days? Is that like a like I think of like the Native American what is it called? Spirit quest, I guess, where you are put in such an extreme connectivity with where you are because it's got to feel so survival oriented for at least a part of it, right?
hmm Yeah, so there's lots of different kinds of these rites of passage around the world, but this one I did it through someone named Martin Shaw, whose school is called the West Country School of Myth in Dartmoor, England, and he learned it from people who practice the Lakota tradition of what's called a vision quest, which is like very unique to their culture. And so he updated it a little bit, like in his own place, it being set in England. But yeah, it's essentially like a very long ritual that you do, and not eating and not having shelter is thought to sort of open your psyche or your awareness to things that can't usually come through just because of the way that we live our daily lives. So it's a lot of boredom and sitting and listening, and you're not meant to be wandering around or writing your next novel or anything. You're really supposed to just be listening to the land and what is there for you. So, yeah, it was a completely incredible experience, and I'm really glad that I did it. And it's not like anything else that I have gone through, but it was a really important rite of passage or a ritual to undertake for sure.
Megan, did that change or inform the wilderness like excursions or like workshops? I might be using the wrong terminology, but what you talked about in your interview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think just having a like felt experience of it sounds weird to talk about outside of that container, but really feeling yourself like as a part of the land, as really no different materially from the beings that are around you. I think it gave me a much better sense of how to be open to what the land wants to share with us, how to connect in ways that are maybe more effective or more inviting than how I learned to connect to the land as, someone with colonizer heritage and also thinking of the land as just this dead, inanimate thing. So yeah, absolutely. It's informed every area of my work. And I think of my work more and more as just like trying to get people to go sit on the ground and like hear from the land and their ancestors. And we don't, yeah, more and more, I just feel like we don't need. Sometimes as a human, I feel like I just want to get really quiet and it's like, just go listen to the trees, like, or the ocean. Like, there's so much there that we really need right now. So I guess sort of opening the conversation beyond the human community is how it feels right now.
Very cool. Very cool.
I love that. And it definitely plays on the fragility of the ego in probably a positive way, because just as fragile as it is to what it would describe as negative intake or, communication, this is now a wider communication where you are a part of something. You are submitting to it and completely dependent on it. We are all completely dependent on it, no matter what illusions we've built around ourselves in order to not think that that's true. I live on a really busy street, so I always thought, I can't get into this, like great meditative state that, maybe somebody like you could in the middle of nowhere for 4 days, like really just giving yourself that moment. And then one day I was like, oh, this is supposed to feel just like an ecosystem. I'm supposed to feel like every honk, every kid screaming, every, car passing by, I'm just like a fish in a coral reef, kind of a part of it. And though I wasn't like, my body and my mind and my spirit weren't put to any kind of limit, those have been my best meditations, is where I'm like, I'm a part of this whole thing. I'm not, when I stand out, it's even just a moment in time. It's not forever and always. And to contend with who I am in the middle of all of it, and not, like shining in a way that has to always shine bright. It's like, no, you get to just be your own human person, separate from everybody else, but also like a part of everything at the same time. And it's not anywhere near what you experience, but like that's like my little mini New York City, Brooklyn experience of it.
I love that. Yeah, I'm so impressed you could do that. And it is so humbling and also such a relief to just feel our tininess and the need, like letting go of the need to fix anything or show up for anyone. Just feel, it's like I feel myself as like a little thread of fungi under the soil or something, just like tiny and inconsequential. And it can be such a relief to those, or like different than the big stories we have about being a hero or whatever it is. So, yeah, I'm really impressed you could experience that in New York.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, Megan, that reminds me of what I was really looking forward to asking you today, listening to your interview with Vanessa. You talked a lot about purpose, and I wanted to pick your brain more about purpose versus fulfillment, and how to kind of walk it back to how you would walk it back to that beginning point for an individual. If you're hustling, you're on your grind, there's that daily overwhelm, you might not feel a part of anything because you're just trying to enrich your own baseline. And like, how would you explore or guide an individual into understanding that like authenticity and that embodiment, and like what purpose looks like in comparison to like fulfillment? Like, how do you find purpose if you don't have the bandwidth to be in service of others, or is being in service to others, or like being a part of that ecosystem more important than discovering your self? Like, if you're in the grind, if you're in the mess of it all, like how would you talk someone into starting that journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I always want to acknowledge just the pressures of capitalism and what it forces us to do and the choices that we have to make, that it's really not easy to feel fulfilled or purposeful in this economy or this way of living. But the way that makes sense for me now in terms of purpose is that I believe our purpose is just to be the most authentic expressed version of who we deeply are as possible or available in this moment. Just like, the cedar tree that I'm looking at, like their purpose is to be cedar to the fullest extent possible. They don't need to be of service to anyone. Them being what they are is inevitably of service. And I believe that when humans are given the right containers or like the resources that they need to be safe and understand who they are and what they're here to do, that even if it doesn't look like service, or like you don't volunteer or you're not in direct care, just by virtue of being, again, creatures of the earth, like you are a blessing to the ecosystem that you are in.
Mm-hmm.
And your role here is to just be who you are and bring your gifts to the fullest extent that you can. So sometimes that looks like, it can look very minimal or tight or tense if we're, again, really stuck in that machine or that grind, and it may not feel like we're able to bring a lot forward. But if we think about it just as, again, as you as like a little node in a great web of life, um, it doesn't have to look any certain way, but if you have a few moments of congruence, of telling yourself the truth about what this is and why it's hard, telling yourself the truth about who you are and what you dream of, those are like little, I don't know, little pollen that blesses the land, or little seeds that go out, a little, oxygen that comes from the trees. So it's just so much more simple, I think, and humble than we make it out to be. It's just, we're just these tiny little creatures, and it's not right that some people have the chance to express their gifts more than others, but each of us are invited to do that in the lives that we do have. So I don't know how that would feel to someone like super in the midst of hardship and tension or a lack of fulfillment, but that's my honest answer.
I dig it.
Yeah, that also touches the right to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of people, especially when you start turning to a spiritual route or a spiritual guide, or you're wanting to connect with whatever is larger out here, you're dealing with sometimes a low grade, sometimes a high grade fear that you weren't meant to be here, or you're a mistake, right? And that we're always looking for someone to reassure or reaffirm that we are not only welcome here, but that we wanted to be here and other people wanted us to be here, and that whatever you turn into is appropriate if it's authentic, like you said, to yourself, and authentically calibrated, right? Because over time we change and we grow, and we hopefully become more and more authentic in our light, and not our, sort of letting go of the darkness. But feeling like you're a mistake, or feeling like, that starts with our parents, it starts with the connection that we have with them of, you're giving me that signal that you wanted me and you wanted me to be here, and we're good to go. And I think a lot of us have those broken homes, those broken relationships, where now we're having to discover for ourselves what tethers us to the land, what tethers us to the right to be here. And purpose is a part of that feeling of rootedness. And I don't think we get a lot of permission to say that rootedness doesn't have to blossom into something that everybody benefits overtly from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I thought about it like that. Yeah, that was really cool.
Radical acceptance. Could we say that's like a good starting point of just like radical acceptance of where you're at and what you're doing, and that it's enough?
Yeah, I think of like the way the soil just accepts and welcomes anything placed there. It doesn't matter if there's 100 dandelions already growing in my backyard. The land has allowed more, and every dandelion is serving a function inside of that tiny ecosystem. There's a reason, there's a need for them, because they're there. So even if you feel like, thousands of other people are doing what I feel called to do, why would I do it? It's really important, I think, to remember that we're just in this tiny ecosystem, and that if we feel a nudge to be a certain way or bring something forward, that's your little patch that is inviting that. And yeah, I find the earth is the most accepting place. It's our original home. I've never sat on the ground and felt unwelcome. It's where it begins.
Wow. So would you offer the remedy to everyone that going out into maybe not the wilderness, but going to a more natural place would
touch grass?
Basically touch some grass. So would you say actually, yeah, like the saying of touch grass is like the reclamation of the fact that you whatever you're growing into is made possible by something that is not fact checking behind you as to whether or not you were supposed to come through, or like safeguarding from, like, because I think that's also the battle between if I'm a good person, if I'm a bad person, if I'm growing into something that is beneficial to other people or detrimental to other people. And you're saying that the earth, which is true, the earth has no discrimination as to what is allowed to be here.
Mm.
And that, its purpose is to allow everything to be here.
Mm. Yeah, I think definitely if anyone listening is having questions about their right to be here on this earth, absolutely go lay with your belly down on the ground and ask, is it okay that I'm here? Or touch a tree and ask, can I be here? And I bet you will hear something affirmative. I do think, the earth is incredibly accepting and very tolerant, but there are times when things get out of balance and it has to be put back into balance. So I think of like our gifts. I work with a 5-element system that's sort of based in Taoism and also the Daguerre tradition of Malidoma Patrice Sommet is where I learned it. And in those traditions are gifts, like what you're here to offer, the way that you're meant to grow is the nature element. So just like, all nature beings, you're meant to grow and bring gifts forward, but they're always meant to be in service to the village in some way. And again, that doesn't have to look like direct care, but ultimately they should be offered to the land and the village for the good of all. I don't think, like hoarding wealth or pursuing power over others is in alignment with the natural world. We see cases of it in the natural world. There are organisms who will take over or decimate a landscape, but on the whole, the elements and the earth are holding everything in balance, and there's no one creature or organism that is meant to rule over all or take everything. And I think we're finding in the human experience that that's getting put back into balance. So yeah, absolutely. Everyone belongs here because they are here, and our gifts are meant to flourish and be of service in some way.
So I think of the 5 elements, or I see 5 elements with the ether involved, right? So fire, water, air, earth, ether. What would be, do you follow that for gifts?
Yeah, the 5 elements I work with are fire, water, earth, mineral, and nature, which would be like nature would be wood in the Taoist tradition and mineral would be metal. And so by gifts, I mean what you have brought to this earth with you that is meant to grow through you. And it can change depending on the context that you're in. And it's essentially just your authentic self. That's its most simple. It's just the way that you want to move and grow in the world. But everyone has specific gifts that are unique to them. Like there's, fungi and animals and all of that, all of those nature beings have gifts that they bring. Some of the gifts that humans carry are, gifts of song or presence or wisdom or, nourishing others with food. Like there's all of these things that want to grow through us that sometimes make sense with like jobs and how to earn an income, but often don't. But they are just what we carry. It's how our presence changes a situation or how we fit into the ecosystem. And a lot of us need to recover and relearn what those are because of either how we've been socialized. I might think that my gift is to be a great caregiver, but it's just because I had to be or whatever.
As like your trauma response or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I work with that. Like with the people I work with, we look at the elements for sure and like a kinship that they feel to the ecosystem. What might they learn about themselves through the land, but also like where Chiron is in your natal chart, where there's been wounding and the gifts in that, but also just what you want to do. Like I find it's, again, very simple. The dreams that you have are in like, as long as they're in service in some way, those are meant to be given. Those are your gifts. Like, not everyone has the same dreams or desires as you do. So we're taught not to trust those because it's like, well, how would you earn an income opening that cafe that you dream of or whatever it is? But that dream is in you and has come to you for a reason and is like a plant or something that wants to grow through you and bloom and be given away. So, yeah, does that make sense?
Yes. And we talked about Chiron in another interview. And so my Chiron is in Gemini. Would you say that it would follow Geminian qualities of communication and
Geminian
communication and adaptability, the ability to ascertain information quickly and move with it quickly? Is that like where my gifts lie, or is that just like a part of where my gifts lie?
Yeah, I think there's gifts all throughout your natal chart, but Chiron shows us where there's like an original kind of wounding that comes in, and the gifts are available through healing that. So my Chiron is also in Gemini, and I had a lot of what I had to work through. The pain around it was not trusting my own channel, not trusting what I heard, what I felt, what I thought was real. If I can tend to that and heal that, there's great power and teaching. Chiron was a great teacher who couldn't heal himself, but healed many other people. So it's not like an easy gift that's just on hand. It's hard won. And often it's much easier for us to do for others than ourselves. Like, I'll tell everyone, trust your trust your intuition, but it's harder to do myself. So yeah, absolutely a lot of giftedness inside of that.
That makes sense too, because mine is in the 10th house. So
Mhm.
it's in the career sector.
Mhm.
And that is where I find, where I want to let go and channel is when as my reputation, or as the mountain that I climb, is how healthy my channel is. And I don't even know how healthy it is right now, but it's always on my mind. Like, the health of the channel is on my mind. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
beautiful.
Mine's in Leo in the 3rd house.
Well, Leo is the gift giver no matter what, because it's benevolence, right? So yeah, what would you say would it also include the fact that it's fire? Is that like, would you look at it like that too? Or would you just look at the sign with it?
Yeah, it's different for everyone, but I would think about, like, if there was a wounding inside of Leo in the 3rd house, maybe just with Leo specifically, I'd think about how someone feels about their ability to be fire, to be seen, to warm others, to transform situations just through their presence. Um, yeah, how does it feel to, is there wounding around being seen essentially? And being fire? And then if we can tend to that, what are the big gifts that come through that in terms of helping other people feel able to be in their fire?
Yeah, and it's the spotlight too, being able to, like you said, being seen. And I I read somewhere that an unconscious Leo, and this is not attached to any planet, but just the zodiac sign, is someone who is kind of gobbling up that light. And the conscious Leo is the one who is saying, I feel so comfortable in the light. I want you to feel comfortable in the light.
Yeah.
And they host other people and they show off what's amazing about other people. Oh, this person is they're so funny, or they're so smart, or you recognize things in other people.
Oh yeah, natural cheerleader.
Right, exactly. So if there's wounding around that, maybe it's that it was either used against you, or that you thought that to be seen was to be vulnerable. But it all kind of circles, like you said, around that Leo self-expression and just being who you are, because it's the sun.
It's so interesting that just yesterday, one of my closest friends, something happened and she texted me about it in real time. And I immediately was like, this is the reality of the situation. Like, you can get over it. like, you've got this, like, just kind of like cheering her on to like move through it. And then she was at work, obviously, so she didn't respond. And as the hours passed, I got insecure. That is one of the biggest points of insecurity for myself, is when I feel like I'm pulling people into the spotlight when they're like, I'm not ready, or like, that's not what I needed. I just needed you to listen, yada, yada, yada. And I forget to ask if that's what others need before offering it. So, if I ever need to slow down or walk it back, just let me know.
I think also what like the wounding is to know that most people, no matter what, appreciate that. Even if they are looking for like just an ear to listen to, that I don't think that negates that that's a seed. You know what I mean?
Well, the person it's wounding is the person who holds that placement, right? Like, it's not wounding her when I offer this. Like, she might be annoyed or not want it, but it wounds me when I give it and it's not received.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yes. But it's still a seed. It's still something really important that you have to offer. At least that's how I'm kind of taking this, as like my channel, even if somebody didn't want me to channel, even if somebody didn't want me to go into a space of like, oh, let me intuitively understand and give you information, and they just wanted to, vent. I, similar to you, maybe am trying to say to myself, just because that's not what everybody needs all the time doesn't mean that that's not a gift I've got, and that a lot of people actually do benefit from.
Yeah. Megan, can you say more on the elements, the 5 elements? How does that pertain to gift?
Yeah. So every element corresponds to different experiences or aspects of life itself. So every element is found in every ecosystem and in our bodies. So the experience of needing to grow, if the nature element is upward growth, the needing to grow and blossom is an experience we have emotionally, but it's also thought to be that element expressing itself. If we are feeling, a lot of grief or gratitude, those are the downward force of mineral. In the autumn season, it takes us down. And all of these experiences are needed in order to have a balanced life. So every element corresponds to different feeling states or aspects of a lived experience. They also correspond to each season. There are these Every element is like a vast realm of beings or ways of being, even, like fire, that's an element, but there's so many different kinds of fire. There's the sun, there's the tiny candle, there's the fire inside the earth. So there are ways to understand our experience as, again, an expression of the earth and life itself and the elements, not as separate from them. So it can be helpful to remember that it's probably more than we can do today, but every element has a direction. So we always have options for how to relate to something. The earth's element is revolution. So the earth revolves around the sun. Nature is upward, mineral is downward, fire is outward, and water is inward. So if I'm encountering a situation that's challenging, I can consider my options. Do I want to move up and get a different perspective of this? Do I need to go down and feel grief about this situation? Do I need to call someone and move out, or meditate on it and move in? Or do I want to look at, has this happened before? Look back a year ago, like the earth, and see what happened. Where have I been? So it's a really rich place of like understanding ourselves and navigating life maybe a little more gracefully.
Is there a name for this lens, or like this modality of listening to you speak on it? Reminds me of Ayurveda. When you're looking at the microcosm of your inner body, or the brain, or the emotions, or where the imbalances might lie, and in order to seek balance or equilibrium, you would introduce the balancing element. So if you needed to calm the fires of if you were getting hives, you would bring in softening, moisturizing, but so you'd bring in qualities that would soothe or balance what is imbalance. And that's what I hear when you speak on this. So I'm curious if there's a name for that modality or lens that you're speaking on, and also if you kind of how you find the equilibrium or.
Yeah, so I learned kind of an amalgamation of two systems. But if people wanted to learn more, they could look up Taoism, the Taoist five element system. Taoist is what you could look up. But also the Dagara system, Dagara, which was brought by Malidoma Patrice Somé. He wrote a couple of books, but one of them is called The Healing Wisdom of Africa. And so those two systems aren't exactly the same, but there's so much overlap and beauty that's sort of what I work with. But yeah, earth is at the center in the Dagara wheel, and fire and water balance each other, and nature and mineral balance each other. So yeah, that's where people could learn more if they wanted to.
Okay, so it's more an energetic practice than so practical as to like eat an oily food or, a bittering agent. It's more like energetic.
Well, I mean, there's like five element acupuncture and healing systems. Like there's a whole rich Chinese healing system around the five elements that's older than traditional Chinese medicine. But yeah, they're sort of like relevant on every level of our life and experience because they are the forces that make life. So yeah, not so different from the Ayurvedic system, but definitely differences.
Right, because you're of it, you're within it, you're without it. Yeah.
So when you're also helping people to grow into their purpose, and you're saying like kind of the root of that is authenticity, or the root of it is, well, because authenticity is this, you have to be authentic in order to stabilize anything or to secure anything, because otherwise it will become too hard for you eventually, and authenticity will show up in a harder way. But let's say, these gifts are coming out or they're being recognized or realized. And let's say a part of fire, since we were just talking about fire, a part of your gift is warmth and joy and maybe lightheartedness. The fire signs tend to be the funniest, simply because they like to give that relief to being alive. Like a lot of there's ups and downs that we experience all the time, and if we laugh, we get to collaborate in the joy of being alive as well. So when they get to that place, I imagine, once these gifts are coming out and they're starting to feel more grounded in what it is that they're offering, that they do want it to go on to something that has a greater impact. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's reputational, maybe it's communal or familial, but where does somebody then start to generate enough security, stabilization, support, where they feel like they can consistently offer it out? Because to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that purpose feeling feeds you back. That's why you want it in the first place, is because it's supposed to give something to you that makes you feel like you go home and you can rest in your own private life, and you've offered what you have to the world, and you feel satiated in some kind of way. So where do you see a threshold or the kind of crossover between I know I've got gifts and I'm glad I have them, to now I'd like to genuinely, consciously, purposefully use these gifts?
Are you kind of asking like what are the conditions needed in order to do that? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like what is it that I've built up enough in myself? How much authenticity? How much, is it that there's a deeper desire to go further and some people don't need all of that? Like, or is that always kind of something that we're going to see somebody wanting to do is, okay, now I feel so good about what my gifts are and my purpose is. I'd like to like now push it into this other area. Like, and maybe I'm also asking this for those people who are feeling like they're so stuck. They're stuck. Maybe they know that they have a gift, but they just do not know how to gain enough momentum, identity. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of, things that people go through that they might want to get past if they wanted to put it out there even further.
Yeah, so that makes me think of like the I'm going to talk about the seasonal cycles and you can let me know if this lands. So, if someone is trying to grow or ready to grow, they're trying to come into the spring, which is the nature element. But in order for us to have spring, the previous seasons need to have expressed themselves to the fullest extent. So if we're trying to grow in the spring and we have skipped over autumn, we have refused to compost what happened in the past, to grieve what we have lost, to grieve what we're going to have to give away in order for this gift to come forward. It's like our soil has not been enriched. It's not rich enough. And if we've done that for our entire lives, the soil is really dry. So we might need to go back to the work of autumn and mineral. And then we come into the winter, which is water, which is the experience of we've let everything go and we're in that time when nothing else is new, like there's no new growth. And some of the primary emotions associated with water are fear and wisdom. So there can be this experience where I've let something go. I know that's not what I need to do anymore. And now I'm frozen in fear. I feel like I can't move because the new thing hasn't come yet. And so our work there is to move through or sit with the fear or warm it through fire and heat and connection. If it thaws enough, then it's possible that the spring will then be able to come. But it's also really important to remember that even if we have a spring and we, I don't know, make a new business or we put a new offer out there or we say, I do this now, this is my gift. I'm going to sing in this open mic or whatever. And then we give of that gift and it's beautiful. And it's like we've collected a little fruit basket and shared it with our community. It's really important to remember that the wheel is going to keep turning. That doesn't last forever. You can be a master of something and in your summer and you are full of ripe fruit for everyone to come eat. But summer ends and you're going to have to go back down and compost and lose it and start again. And it will get, I think, I mean, maybe this is like more of our culture speaking, but I do think it gets more and more beautiful over a life if we can live that way and more robust and hardy and resilient. So I can't even remember your original question, but that's what came up.
Oh no, I think that's exactly what I was asking is like how do we accept maybe that well, I didn't even ask how do we accept that purpose is sometimes ebbs and flows, but you basically gave me a better answer to the idea that maybe there is this continual battery pack we've got somewhere that we don't know that we can tap. And I think that's like what a lot of people think purpose is this like, where's that battery pack? Where is that place in me that I'm like just constantly giving from and I'm getting something back from? And this is much more not only realistic, but self-accepting that you also, even if, I was so connected to my purpose, maybe I want to go rest, maybe I want to go compost, maybe it has nothing to do with like that life is pulling me back down, but that I had the fruit for a moment and now I would like to go rest and then I'm going to come back out and bring it again at a different time in a space that feels good for me, because that's like art all the time, like that's albums, that's collections. People do it in bursts a lot of times, and we just see it differently.
It reminds me of gardening, because if you pull up the weeds, like if it's springtime and you try to weed, you're just spreading their seed for them. But if you pull out the weeds in the right season, if it's fall when everything's pulling into their roots, and then you pull out the roots, and like if you trim back when all the flowers are done, it comes back more robust. The plants keep coming back. The ones you want to come back only get stronger when you tend to them, but you cut them back and you give them what they need in the different seasons, and you tend the garden appropriately to what each season is doing energetically. That's nice, satisfying.
I feel like it's kind of the difference between looking for it versus just it's right here. Your purpose is never outside of you. It's never like under lock and key. No one's trying to hide it from you. Like it's not a math problem you can't solve. It's just complicated inside of this way of living and having to earn money. Yeah, it just feels like this kind of easeful, just here's how you do it. Just do what you can. Here's how you do it. And it's simple, but not easy. Mm. So yeah, definitely not feeling like I'm grasping at it, but just trying to embody it.
I love that. Okay, so for my last question, or my last, what I'd like the audience to be left with, is someone who's stuck, because I think a lot of people who listen to spiritual podcasts are feeling a little stuck, or at least want, more verbal direction as to what they would, what the next step should be. If someone was really wanting to discover their purpose, let's say this isn't a person who has known, but this is someone who's really trying to figure it out, where would you say they should look inside of their own inclination or proclivity or energetic push? Because Jessica and I were talking before you came on that we know that purpose can be anything from Doctors Without Borders, which is, I think, kind of what we all sort of look at purpose is like somebody who's going through the incredible front lines and not really being compensated or acknowledged or recognized, but they're totally there and they're present and they're, saving people's lives, to someone who is saying, oh, my purpose was to open a cafe. My purpose was to be a mother. My purpose was to be a great friend. What is the emotional target or like the energetic flow that somebody can kind of start to identify is probably their purpose speaking to them?
Sometimes it's helpful to just let go of the question or the word at all for a moment and just put it down. You don't have to keep searching for it, that it's already here. But I think it sounds kind of cliche, but one of the easiest ways in is just to notice where you feel good in your life. What kind of ecosystem feels good and like a match or congruent with who you are? And do you have things that you want to do in your life? I really believe that, the things we want to do can change, and some people change their mind all the time. But I do believe it can be as simple as just go toward the sun, just go down into the soil, just go where it feels right for you. And sometimes it's a matter of like getting that barometer set again to what feels right in the body. But I think it can be as simple as just, yeah, go where it feels good. And, could you take your dreams for your life seriously?
Oh, I love that you said, can I take my dreams seriously? Can I look at them and say, this means something, this matters? That's a very confronting thing for some of us, is that, we think that the things that we love aren't going to be taken seriously, or if we take them seriously, we'll look like a fool. And that's the cringe culture of all of it. Is it's not necessarily that I can't feel my purpose. It's that I'm either too afraid or too maybe overwhelmed. I'm too conditioned to see this as a purpose, because what would other people think, or what would anybody take me truly seriously?
Forget them.
Forget them. Exactly. That's that Chiron Leo.
Forget it.
Forget them.
I guess if you can't see the sun either, then like not being afraid to go into the dark or go where it's most uncomfortable and just start hacking off limbs. Not your own limbs.
We are not endorsing that.
But the metaphorical limbs, I could definitely say that at the start of my spiritual journey, that's where I had to start. I couldn't even determine up from down or life. I couldn't even feel the sun. And I just had to start recognizing what was the most uncomfortable and the most distasteful and the most irritating, and just start sloughing that off to make room for God knows what. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Incredible. Thank you. This was beautiful, Megan.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking with you.
Do you have any closing notes you want to leave us with?
No, I feel like we covered a lot in this short conversation. So yeah, I hope it all felt grounded and available to people listening.
Absolutely.
And so we'll officially say thank you and goodbye. I was delighted to be a part of this conversation today with you.
Well, thank you both so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Enjoy your day.